Section D, the lawmaking function of Congress.
You're probably wondering, outside of squash and schmoozing, what the Congress actually does. Well, lucky for you, we've put together this handy section all about just that.
The main responsibility of the Congress is to make laws. Without laws, there's no order. Without order, there is chaos. And if chaos ensues, the trains won't run on time, criminals will run free, and it would be impossible to get a pizza delivered in under an hour. So, laws pretty much shape the entire structure of American society. Heavy, huh?
But before a law becomes a law, it's got to start out as a proposed law, also known as a bill. But where do bills come from?
Quite simply, bills come from almost everywhere, including the president, executive agencies, committees, interest groups, and even private individuals like yourself via your congressional representative. But even though bills can come from anywhere, a member of Congress must introduce them on the floor.
Because of all those different origins of bills, there are a heck of a lot of bills out there. But not all bills become laws. The amount of bills that actually become laws is minuscule in comparison to all the bills out there. So, how does a bill get lucky and become a law?
A bill goes through many stages before it can become a law. First, a bill has to be introduced into the House and Senate, but this doesn't have to occur simultaneously. It might take months for a bill that already reached the Senate to reach the House. However, the House and Senate do have parallel processes for bill consideration, so each House can process the same bill at the same time. But remember, a bill must survive both processes in the Senate and the House in order to move on to eventually become a law.
Okay, so a bill is introduced in the House and Senate. A congressperson who really digs the bill will introduce it, but usually that member already has the support of other congressional members. They're called sponsors. After the exciting introduction, the bill is then referred to a committee. A committee then refers it to a subcommittee. The subcommittee researches the bill, discusses the bill, then holds hearings all about what the bill can do for the country. The bill is then debated on the floor of each House chamber. In the debate, both sides, those for and those against the bill, can voice their opinions.
In the House of Representatives, before a bill can be debated, it must be approved by the House Rules Committee and given a scheduled time and a time limit for debate. That's the House for you, full of rules.
After the debates are over, a vote is held. A simple majority carries the day. Now, if the bill survives the vote in the House, it goes on to the Senate, unless it was considered by both houses simultaneously. If both houses vote to forward the bill, it must first be determined if both houses ended up with an identical bill. If there are any inconsistencies between the Senate and House approved bills, then it must be sent to the Conference Committee, which is made up of members of both houses. This committee will iron out any differences between the two houses' versions. Once a compromise version is worked out, it goes back to the floors of the House and Senate for final approval. If approved, it goes on to the President, who can either veto or reject the bill, or sign it and make it a law.
So that's the neat and tidy story of a bill. But it's not always that simple. To show you just how sticky it is to pass a bill, we've got some highly impressive political vocabulary we picked up from CNN. Use this vocabulary often and you'll look smart.
First, there's the hold. A hold is an action that a senator can take whereby he or she asks to be informed before a certain bill hits the Senate floor. A hold should tell the other senators that the colleague who placed the hold probably has some big objections to the upcoming bill, and that may lead to a filibuster, something we mentioned earlier. A filibuster is a formal way of halting action on a bill by making long speeches and unlimited debate in the Senate. Filibusters only occur in the Senate and not the House. Filibusters tend to make the Senate look like it's paralyzed with indecision and ineptitude.
Actually, filibustering is a tactic used by senators to hold the floor until debate is withdrawn on the bill under consideration. In this way, filibusters can effectively kill proposed legislation. It takes a 3/5 vote of the full Senate to end a filibuster.
Outside of holds and filibusters, another very obvious obstruction of lawmaking is the veto. A veto is a rejection of a bill by the president. There are several kinds of vetoes.
A pocket veto can occur if the Congress is scheduled to adjourn within 10 days of the president receiving the bill. After the passage of these 10 days, the president successfully vetoes the bill just by not signing it. So in essence, if the president receives a bill from Congress and Congress is slated to call it quits for the year in less than 10 days, the president has the option of doing absolutely nothing with the bill. He can stick it in his pocket, where when the Congress does adjourn, it sits unsigned. At this point, the bill is officially dead.
The biggest part of the lawmaking process in the Congress is definitely the whole voting thing. But voting involves more than a yay or a nay. It involves a decision-making process. And believe it or not, every member of Congress has got one, even imaginary senators.
Yay or nay? Well, 2 out of 3. Takanka, can you get my pacifier?
Okay. I'm sure that when making a really big decision, a senator also takes cues from his party colleagues, his constituents, his staff members, congressional support agencies like the General Accounting Office or the Congressional Budget Office, and last but not least, the caucuses, which are kind of like interest groups.
We've already said that constituents guide congressional decision-making. But just like other things political, there are several kinds of constituencies. In fact, political scientist Richard F. Fenno, Jr. decided that there are 4 constituencies that can be found within a member's voting district.
First, there is the geographical constituency. This refers to the location and the size of the district. Like the state of Texas is the geographical constituency for a Texas senator. Second, there is the re-election constituency. This constituency is made up of all the people a current Congress member thinks are going to vote for him or her. Third, there is the primary constituency. The primary constituency is made up of all the loyalists who vote for the member and provide campaign and financial support. And fourth, the personal constituency is made up of the close friends and advisors of the political representative.
What do these constituencies tell us about the voting population in America?
Well, it means that all of the U.S. voting population has some influence on the decisions of a congressional member. From the moms and pops to the bigwigs that help line a senator's budgetary wallet, politicians have to please the largest amount of their constituency as possible.
Pleasing a constituency means earning that constituency's trust, and earning trust results in the freedom to make decisions with the constituency's support. That's why studies show that legislative members vote in conformity with their constituency's opinions about 2/3 of the time.
Integrity, trust, duty. Senator Leroy Ellison, voting with his constituency 2/3 of the time. Paid for by the committee to re-elect Leroy Ellison.
So the existence of different constituencies increases the difficulty of a congressperson's representative function. This is because not all the constituencies that Fenno identified will always agree with one another. That means when the member votes, someone is going to be unhappy. And when someone is unhappy, someone usually isn't being represented. A member of Congress can't possibly please all the people they represent all the time.
And that's the legislative branch in a nutshell. Let's take a quick look back at what we've covered before we close this discussion.
The lawmaking function of the legislative branch centers around the passage of bills through Congress. Remember, a bill is a proposed law. A bill can come from almost anywhere, including the president, executive agencies, committees, interest groups, and even private citizens. Bills are passed through both the House and the Senate, voted on, and then sent to the president if both houses agree on the same form of a bill. But lots of things happen while a bill goes through each house of legislature. There may be holes, filibusters, massive discussion, and even things called pocket vetoes. But the biggest part of the congressional lawmaking function is the voting for or against a bill. Lots of things affect the voting habits of senators and House representatives, including their political parties, their constituents, caucuses, staff members, and congressional support agencies. Lastly, we covered 4 types of constituents that are said to affect legislative members' voting habits. Those 4 constituents are geographical, re-election, primary, and personal constituencies.